Hello, 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 and namaste, Witchlings. How is everybody doing this evening? There we go. I apparently was slightly cockeyed in my chair. Ha. There we go. That feels better. It's an Andrea and a Joram. Hello, guys. Donk. All right. It is insanity out there, isn't it, y'all? All right, so welcome one and all to Bitchin Witch. This is where Di takes a current event that has me piss the fluff off and rants about it for a bit. Tonight we will be tying into our current event, the week's theme and the monthly theme, because, well, our weekly, our Sanskrit word of the week, meaning, to witness, it's kind of a good tie-in. All right, so here we go. Somewhere along the line, we were taught a very specific lie about love. That if you love someone, you should be doing something about their feelings. Managing them, improving them, fixing them. Turning discomfort into productivity, pain into a project, emotion into a task list. We were taught that care looks like motion, that stillness is neglect, and that presence without action is a failure of character. And that lie lands hardest on women, on witches, caregivers, anyone trained explicitly or implicitly and quietly to become the emotional infrastructure of other people's lives. If you have ever been praised for being the strong one, the listener, the fixer, the one who keeps everything running smoothly while quietly unraveling inside, you know exactly what I am talking about. Love, we are told, means anticipating needs. Love means smoothing the rough edges and absorbing discomfort so others don't have to. This week, that lie is colliding very hard with reality because we are watching, once again, what happens when truth surfaces and people panic. The document drop this weekend did not shock a single solitary person who has been paying attention. What it exposed, yet again, was not new harm, but a familiar reaction. The absolute frantic need to resolve the truth as quickly as possible so nobody has to sit with what it actually means. We are watching that same reflex everywhere. Tell me what to do so I don't have to feel this. Tell me the takeaway. Tell me the action item. Tell me how to move on. And that reflex, that's not care, my friends. That is avoidance, dressed up as urgency. We live in a culture that treats discomfort like a problem to be solved instead of a signal to be listened to. We rush to fix because fixing gives us a sense of control. It gives us something to do. It lets us bypass grief, rage, complicity, and grief's only slightly quieter cousin, reckoning. But not everything that hurts is broken, and not every truth arrives with instructions. Our month's theme is truth without illusion, the kind that doesn't offer neat conclusions or satisfying arcs. The kind that asks us to stay present even when resolution is not available. And this week's practice, our Sanskrit anchor, is Samiksha, careful examination, witnessing, clear seeing, not reacting or fixing, seeing. Samiksha asks us to slow down enough to notice what we're actually responding to. Are we responding to someone else's pain or to our own discomfort with witnessing it? Are we reacting from care or from the need to feel useful, innocent, or absolved? Presence Presence is not laziness, it is not avoidance, and it is not doing nothing. Presence is a refusal to overfunction in systems that profit from your exhaustion. It's a refusal to turn every hard moment into labor. It's the discipline of staying with what is true without trying to manage it into something more palatable. That kind of presence is not passive. It's not passive. It is steady and grounded. And in a culture addicted to fixing, it is quietly radical. Because sometimes, the most honest response to truth isn't action. It's attention. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Fixing and caring are not the same thing. Give me a sec here. All right. Scoot your boots. Yep. Haven't done that yet, so. Hi, y'all. Now that I've told you what we're talking about tonight, let me tell you who I am and why this matters to me. I am Di the Yoga Witch. I am your guide and your host here tonight. I am a survivor of numerous things. I am a veteran, and I have become an activist in my later years here. So, this is Bitchin Witch. Again, we're talking about shit that pisses me off, so... Oh, buckle up, y'all. We're about to start this ride. All right. Let me take another quick sip. I'm going to drink some water this time. Okay. All right. There we go. Let's get moving. So, fixing is not the same as caring. Many of us think it is, but it truly is not. Punk. All right. So, let's be honest. Let's be honest about fixing. Fixing gets a really, really good PR campaign. It's framed as kindness, as competence, as love in action. We praise the people who step up, the ones who handle things and who know what to do. We build entire identities around being useful, reliable, the one who can make it better. Gee, I don't know anybody like that. But fixing often centers our discomfort, not the other person's needs. And when someone is in pain and we rush in to solve it, what we are really saying, whether we mean to or not, is your feelings are difficult for me to be around. This is less about relieving their suffering and more about relieving the tension we feel witnessing it. Pain without a plan makes us itchy twitchy. Vulnerability without a roadmap feels unsafe. So we reach for action the way someone reaches for a light switch in a dark room, even if flipping it doesn't actually help anyone see. Silence is a huge part of why this happens, too. Silence makes people panic because silence doesn't give us a task. There's no script, no checklist, no gold star at the end of it for saying the right thing. Silence asks us to be present without being productive, and that goes against almost everything that we have been trained to value. We're taught from early age that being helpful means being active, that care looks like motion, and that stillness is indifference. So when a conversation slows, or someone is crying and not asking for advice, when a truth lands without immediately telling us what to do next, our nervous systems interpret that as danger, Will Robinson. We feel pressure to do something, anything, just to make that feeling stop. Advice, especially unsolicited advice, can shut down honesty fast. The moment you jump to solutions, that conversation changes. It stops being about listening and becomes about performing improvement. Now the person in pain is suddenly asked to respond to your idea, your framing, your timeline for their healing. They're no longer allowed to simply be where they are. They're now expected to move towards somewhere else so everyone can feel better. I know it's not always malicious. Oftentimes, it's a deeply learned reaction because many of us were raised in environments where emotions were only tolerated if they were brief, quiet, or quickly and easily fixable. You could be sad, but not for long. You could be angry, but only if you had a plan on how to fix it. You could be confused, but only until someone smarter explained it away. And over time, we internalize the idea that feelings are problems to be solved rather than experiences to be witnessed. Presence, by contrast, is a radical refusal to overfunction. Presence says, I can stay with this without controlling it. Presence says, I trust you to have an interior life that does not require my management. That right there is a big deal. It means letting go of the belief that we are responsible for regulating other people's emotions. It means resisting the urge to smooth, translate, or sanitize what someone is expressing so it fits neatly into our comfort zone. It means allowing pain to exist without immediately converting it to progress. And that's especially difficult in a culture that treats productivity as a moral fucking virtue. We're encouraged to turn everything, even grief, rage, and fucking trauma, into something useful. A lesson, a brand, a call to action. If you cannot extract value from it, the implication is that you're doing it wrong. But, my witchlings, not everything needs to be optimized. Some things just need to be held. Here's the line I want you guys to sit with this week. If someone's pain makes you uncomfortable, that does not mean it's your responsibility to resolve it. That includes partners, your friends, your kids, once they're old enough to have their own inner worlds. It includes audiences and communities. And yes, it includes movements, especially movements. We see this all the forking time in collective spaces. Someone names harm, and the immediate response is, okay, but what's the solution? Someone speaks grief or anger, and the room tightens, waiting for a pivot towards hope, strategy, or even inspiration. There is an unspoken demand to package pain in a way that feels actionable and contained so the group can move on without actually sitting with what's been revealed. That is part of why I co-founded the Civic Care community, so that we have that space to just sit with our feelings and not be expected to fix it right away. But movements don't fail because people feel too much. They fail because feeling is rushed past, managed, or even ignored until it leaks out sideways as burnout, infighting, or even worse, cruelty. When presence is replaced by fixing, listening is replaced by hierarchy. The people most affected by harm become problems to be managed instead of the voices needing to be centered. Choosing presence over fixing doesn't mean doing nothing, though. It means doing something much more difficult. Staying. Staying with that discomfort. Staying with the complexity. Staying with the truth long enough for it to be actually understood rather than quickly neutralized. It also means being honest about your own limits. You don't have infinite capacity, and pretending you do doesn't make you more loving. It makes you brittle. When you rush to fix something out of obligation, resentment is not far behind. When you overfunction, you teach others quietly that their feelings are burdens you're willing to carry until one day you just can't. Care that lasts requires boundaries, and boundaries require the courage to say, I can be here without taking this over. I can hold space. And that right there is the difference between caring and fixing. Caring says, I'm with you. Fixing says, I need this to change. One is relational. The other is transactional. And in a world that constantly demands resolution, choosing presence is not passive. It is disciplined and ethical, and it's a refusal to confuse motion with meaning. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stay, listen, and let the moment be unfinished. So, my darlings, now let's talk attunement. Plain language, no therapy speak, no mystique. After I take a sip. Yeah. Hail hydrate. That's hilarious. I have water and soda today too. Are we shocked? I'm shocked. Only pleasant emotions allowed. Yeah. Yep. That plays into what we're talking about tonight. Very good on Nicole. Jorm's sipping tea. Tea is good too. I need to make some tea. I need to take a picture of something right quick. Please bear with me. I am doing 3 things at once, as usual. So. Sorry. All right. So. Attunement. Attunement is listening without deciding ahead of time what the other person is feeling. It's staying curious instead of assuming. It's letting someone tell you who they are in that moment rather than filtering their experience through your own story. Projection, by contrast, is faster. Projection says, if that were me, I'd feel blah. Projection says, I've been through something similar, so I already get it. Projection lets you skip curiosity and jump straight to authority. And to be clear, projection isn't always cruel. Often it's how people try to connect. We reach for our own experiences as a bridge. We want to be helpful, to show empathy, and to signal solidarity. But, and this is something we autistics need to learn, intent doesn't erase impact. When projection replaces listening, the other person disappears and your interpretation takes center stage. I know how you feel is typically wrong, even when it's well intended, especially though across power differences. You do not know how someone else feels unless they tell you. And even then, you only know what they're able or willing to articulate. Assuming otherwise collapses complexity into familiarity. It turns someone else's inner world into a mirror for your own. Assuming is easier than listening because listening requires humility. Real listening means accepting that you might maybe possibly be wrong and that your framework might not apply, and that your past experience, however intense or meaningful, does not automatically translate into understanding someone else's present reality. That's why I personally, instead of say, I know how you feel, I will say, I empathize. I've lived through something similar. I can't know exactly how you feel because I'm not inside your body and your mind. This is where Samiksha matters. Careful examination. Clear seeing without interference. Samiksha asks us to observe. Try that again. See if I can say it right. Samiksha asks us to observe without rushing to interpret. To notice what's actually being said instead of what we expect to hear. It asks us to. You'll understand why I'm laughing in a second. It asks us to pause long enough for nuance to surface. That pause is uncomfortable because it strips us of control. You cannot dominate a conversation you're genuinely listening. You cannot dominate a conversation you are genuinely listening to. You can't feel like the expert if you're letting someone else define their own experience. Notice who gets listened to in our culture. And then notice who gets fixed instead. People with power are listened to. Their feelings are treated as informative, complex, and worthy of time and analysis. People without power are managed. Their pain is treated as a problem to solve, a disruption to smooth over, or a PR issue to contain. Marginalized people don't get attuned to. They get managed. Their anger is labeled excessive, their grief is called divisive, and their fear, their genuine, real, honest fear, is reframed as overreaction. If their pain is acknowledged at all, it's often minimized, commodified, or rushed toward a conclusion so the rest of the world can move on feeling absolved. There's pressure to translate suffering into something consumable, a lesson, a soundbite, a policy point, or a moment of inspiration. Inspo porn! Anything that allows observers to feel informed without being implicated. That, my friends, is projection at scale. Instead of listening to what's actually being said, dominant systems decide what the pain means. They tell people how they should feel, how long they're allowed to feel it, and what an acceptable emotional arc looks like. Grief must become resilience. Rage must become hope. And anything else that lingers too long is treated as a failure to heal. Attunement resists that. Attunement says, I'm not here to shape your experience into something I can digest. Attunement says, I'm willing to be changed by what I hear. And that right there is why attunement is slow. It doesn't make you feel useful right away. There's no instant payoff. There's no sense of accomplishment. And there definitely is not a tidy narrative that ends with everybody holding hands, singing Kumbaya, and feeling better. You don't get a gold star for sitting quietly and listening well. You don't get praised for not centering yourself, and you sure as fuck don't get validation for resisting the urge to perform understanding. And that's exactly why attunement scares systems built on extraction. Extraction depends on speed, on efficiency, and on converting human experience into something actionable, profitable, or controllable as quickly as humanly fucking possible. Attunement interrupts that process. It introduces friction. It demands time, and it insists on complexity where systems want simplicity. When you're attuned, you cannot rush someone through their pain to get to the part where you feel useful. You can't override their reality with your interpretation. And you sure as hell can't treat their story as raw material for your own meaning making. That is their story, their experience, not yours. And that is threatening to hierarchies that rely on speaking for others instead of listening to them. Attunement also requires us to confront our own positionality. Listening across difference means acknowledging your perspective is not neutral, that your understanding is shaped by your history, your privilege, your wounds, and your blind spots. Projection allows you to avoid that reckoning, while attunement demands it. And this isn't just a political or social issue. It pops up in intimate relationships as well. When someone you love is struggling, projection often sounds like reassurance. It'll be okay. You are stronger than you think. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. At least it's not worse. You don't have cancer. These statements are meant to comfort, but they often bypass the actual feeling in the room. They skip right past the fear, grief, or confusion and land somewhere safer, somewhere more manageable. Attunement would sound more like, tell me more, or I'm not sure I understand quite yet, but I want to, or even, I don't know what to say, but I'm here. Those responses don't resolve anything. They don't offer certainty, and they sure as hell don't make you feel competent. But they create space for truth to exist without being reshaped. And that space matters. Because when people are truly attuned to, they don't have to fight to be believed. They don't have to exaggerate or perform their pain to make it legible. They don't have to rush themselves toward healing to keep other people comfortable. They can unfold at their own pace. Projection utterly and completely short-circuits this process. It replaces curiosity with certainty. It trades relationship for control, and it feels efficient, but it costs us depth. Attunement asks more of us. It asks us to slow the fuck down and to listen longer than feels efficient. To tolerate not knowing. and to resist the urge, that incredibly strong urge, to translate someone else's experience into our own language too quickly. That's not passive. That's disciplined. In a culture obsessed, and I do mean obsessed, with hot takes, instant empathy, and fast conclusions, attunement is a quiet rebellion. It refuses to rush pain into something productive, to turn listening into another performance. Samiksha, clear seeing, reminds us that observation without interference is not indifference, it is respect. And respect, practiced consistently, changes how power moves through relationships, communities, and movements. It shifts who gets centered. It changes whose voices shape the narrative. And it slows things down just enough for the truth to breathe. Attunement doesn't make you feel powerful. It makes you present. And in systems that survive by consuming people, presence is not a small thing at all. All right. Now we get to the rough part. Let's check in with the chat real quick, though. Hello, hey! Haha, I see Jay. Oh, yeah. He was involved with everyone that had pot. Yup, that was his thing. Couple of days, this couple of blah, blah, blah. I hear you, Jay. I don't disagree with you that it's kind of scary out there right now. But, yeah. The best thing you can do if you are looking at the state of our world right now and realizing that, you gotta do shit about, then get involved with your local, either something like Indivisible or even run for office yourself. Oh no, Insta kicked her out. Yeah, get involved with someone who really wants to be helpful. Again, I need to get him Romero's info. Yeah, we really do. I don't blame you for deleting your social media. There is, yeah. I am very blessed. Most of my social media, aside from the pages I'm following that specifically are for this shit, I don't get a whole lot of politics in my social media because most of the people I follow on social media are fellow spoonies, or witchy. And yeah, I'm getting some of the politics and the witchy in both of those communities, but we're doing a pretty good job of not becoming echo chambers. Thank the gods. All right. Doom, doom, doom. Whoop. To get that off my chest. Yeah, she's back over here on YouTube. Insta kicked her out. Thank you. No. The only thing I have is YouTube. I don't have any other social media. See, I have stuck. I despise Meta as a company, but I have stuck with their platforms because that's where most of my spoonies are. All right. Oh, let's see. Ah, yes. Now we get to some of the more interesting stuff. This is the part that really, really, really hits home for me and I need to pay attention to. And that is emotional availability without burning out. And this, my friends, is where we clean up a rather dangerous misunderstanding that quietly burns people out while calling it love. Emotional availability does not mean emotional access. Somewhere along the way, so many of us were taught that if we care, we should always be reachable. Thank you, fucking cell phones. We should always be open and always ready to receive whatever someone else is carrying. Does not matter if they just woke you up out of a sound, deep-ass sleep at 4 o'clock in the gods be damned morning. We are always ready to receive what someone else is carrying, and that love means unlimited bandwidth, and that needing limits is a personal failure rather than a biological reality. But you can be present without being porous. You can care without becoming a container for everything. Porosity sounds noble until you look at what it actually costs you. Because when you absorb everything, everyone's feelings, crises, needs, and expectations, you stop being available in any meaningful way. You're flooded, reactive, running on fumes, and what looks like generosity from the outside often feels like erasure from the inside. Boundaries are not rejection, my friends. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Boundaries are not rejection. They are the shape that makes care sustainable. A boundary isn't a wall meant to keep people out. It's a structure that keeps you intact. Without it, even the most loving intentions collapse under their own weight. Care without boundaries becomes martyrdom. Connection without limits turns into consumption. This is especially hard for people who have been praised for their emotional labor. Hi, wife and mom here. If you're the one others lean on, the one who listens, the one who holds space, there is often unspoken If you're the one others lean on, the one who listens and holds space, there's often an unspoken expectation that you will always be available. Saying no feels like betrayal. Saying not right now feels selfish. And saying I can't hold this feels like failure. And we're told that it is. But guess what? It isn't. Naming your capacity is an ethical act. Ethical. It's not a failure. It's not a mood. It's definitely not a personality flaw. Because capacity, I should not have to explain this. Capacity is not infinite and it's not static. It changes with sleep, with stress, grief, illness, history, and context. Pretending otherwise does not make you more loving. It makes you less honest. When you ignore your limits, you do not become more available. You become resentful, numb, and brittle. Eventually, something's gotta give. When you say, I don't have the capacity to hold this right now, you are telling the truth instead of performing wellness. You are choosing integrity over optics. You are refusing to fake presence when what you can offer would be hollow or harmful. That matters, especially this week, because truth without containment burns people out. We talk a lot about holding space, but rarely about who gets burned by it. When difficult truths surface about harm, injustice, betrayal, or loss, there is often an unspoken demand for constant engagement. Stay informed, stay outraged, stay available. Process everything in real time. Be responsive, be articulate and compassionate and productive. All at once. Dudes, that expectation is not neutral, it is extractive, and it treats human nervous systems like renewable resources. It assumes people can absorb endless input without consequence. And when they can't, when we step back, we go quiet, or we draw boundaries, we're labeled apathetic, selfish, or disengaged. But stepping back isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's regulation. Sometimes it's care for the part of you that allows you to keep caring at all. Presence is how we stay human without becoming disposable. It doesn't require you to be constantly reachable. It requires you to be honest about when you're available and when you're not. It allows for rhythm instead of constant output. It recognizes that connection happens in waves, not on demand. There is such a difference between being emotionally available and emotionally obligated. Availability is chosen. Obligation is imposed. One is relational and the other is transactional. And this distinction matters in movements, communities, and intimate relationships alike. In collective spaces, the expectation of constant emotional access often falls hardest on the same people: women, caregivers, organizers, and those already carrying disproportionate harm. They're expected to explain, soothe, translate, and educate, often while they're still actively hurting. Burnout isn't a personal weakness in these cases. It's a predictable outcome of uncontained care. In personal relationships, emotional access without boundaries can slowly erode trust. When you say yes while quietly resenting it, your presence becomes performative. When you override your own limits to keep the peace, honesty suffers. And over time, people stop knowing where they actually stand with you because your words and your capacity simply don't match. Boundaries, when spoken clearly and without apology, make relationships safer, not colder. They tell the truth about what's possible. They allow consent to exist in emotional exchanges, not just the physical ones. And yes, boundaries can disappoint people. That doesn't mean they're wrong. Disappointment is not harm. Someone feeling let down because you're unavailable does not automatically mean you've done something unethical. Often, it simply means a previously unspoken expectation has now been revealed. That revelation is some seriously useful information. It tells you where care has quietly turned to enlightenment. It shows you where you've been cast in a role you've never explicitly agreed to play. Boundaries bring these dynamics into the light, where they can be examined instead of endlessly reenacted. This is also where presence becomes a practice, not a performance. Being present doesn't mean staying in conversations that are harming you. It doesn't mean absorbing rage, grief, or fear without support. It does not mean sacrificing your nervous system on the altar of being a good person. Presence means showing up honestly within your own limits. It means saying yes when you can and no when you cannot, without turning either into a moral referendum. It means trusting that care offered in truth, even when limited, is far more sustainable than care offered out of obligation. You are not required to be endlessly accessible to be loving. You are not failing when you choose containment. And you are not less committed because you protect your capacity. In a culture that treats people as endlessly consumable, choosing to remain intact is not selfish. It's fucking necessary. Presence practiced with boundaries is how we stay human in systems that would otherwise grind us down. Let's check in with the chat again. Boop, 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 boom. All right. Boop. Boop. All right. Oh, I'm right about something. Ha. All right. Wow, y'all have been talkative here. Boom. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Yeah, because I did not see anyone celebrating his death. I did see a large number of people repeating his own words, and not exactly, grieving that he was gone. But I did not see anyone celebrating it. Jay, my algorithm shows me a lot of stuff from both sides because I have very carefully made sure that I am not in an echo chamber. And I did not see anyone with any sort of real influence or power celebrating his death. Yes, I saw some people, like I said, unironically pointing out his own words after his death. I saw some people making jokes about it because of the irony of his words, the ones in question being, this is a paraphrasing because I cannot remember his exact words, but we if we have to sacrifice a few children to gun violence, then that's okay to preserve our Second Amendment rights. So that particular irony I saw lots of people joking about, but I did not see a single solitary person with any kind of power celebrating his death. Laughing about it because of the irony, yes, but there is a huge, huge, huge difference in laughing at the irony of someone saying, well, if a few people dying is what we have to sacrifice to, protect this Second Amendment right, then that's just something we have to live with. Those were his own words. So, by his words, we shouldn't mourn his death because, well, if a few people have to get shot, if we have to lose a few people to gun violence to preserve our Second Amendment rights, well, them's the breaks. But I know he said a lot of bad things people would not be okay with, but I don't think people should celebrate, and I'm not sure how I deal with that thought. The fact that nobody actually was celebrating. We were giggling maniacally over the irony of what he said and what happened. And being amused by that irony, but nobody was celebrating his death. Every single person I saw who was laughing about that particular irony was saying it is a tragic thing that this happened. But I mean, come on, he damn near asked for it by what he said. No, it wasn't that they didn't trust her. The reason Kamala didn't win is A, we have the mega cult here in the States, and B, despite having elected a black man, we are still an incredibly racist country, and too many people, could not stomach the idea of a black woman in power. It was 100% the racism and the sexism in this country combined with the cult of MAGA. Oh, I don't disagree with you that it's not okay that this was happening. But it was. We were laughing at the irony of him saying, well, if people get shot, them's the breaks. We want to protect our Second Amendment right. So we're just going by what he had to say. I don't think she was the worst candidate in all of history. I mean, look at what we ended up with. She has been a public servant and a politician for most of her life, much like Biden. You okay back there, dude? Okay. So, she was actually a very good candidate, and had she been a white man with her resume, she'd have been voted into office in a heartbeat. My thoughts. Now, yes, as far as the other chat, we have Nicole saying her son is struggling with mom setting boundaries, and that, yeah, this is definitely the life of parents with disabled kids. A fucking man. Okay, Queen, try to bring me to left. The same Ro. Ro is saying that Kirk was evil, but we feel bad for feeling relieved at his passing. Yes. He was not a good person. He was not a good person. But aside from laughing at the irony of what he said and how he went out, I do also feel bad for being relieved that there was one less person in the world spreading that kind of hate. And that's where I'm coming at it from. I am grateful that there is one less person out there spreading hate and sowing discontent. Do I wish it had been different? Yes. Because I don't want anyone to be killed for their beliefs. Because I could be killed for mine. I mean, I know this. But see, he was a devoted evangelical. There is a huge difference between evangelicals and Christians. I agree with you, Roro. Obama was a good person. He did some less than stellar things, but at his core, he's a good person. He truly wanted the best for his country and his people. Charlie Kirk did not. All right. We are just about ready to wrap up. Actually, this is the last little bit here, my friends. All right. So, as we close, I want to bring this out of theory. You know, we're not going to talk about being present. We're not going to listen to people talking about being present. We're actually going to bring this into a lived practice. And here's your practice for the week. Notice one moment where you didn't immediately jump into fix, where you listened, you stayed, you let silence exist without rushing in to fill it. That moment might be small. It might be just a breath before you respond to a text message. Or it might be resisting the urge to offer advice when someone is venting. It might even be letting a conversation end without a solution, reassurance, and without a tidy bow on top. That's not apathy, friends. That's discipline. We have been so trained to believe that care must always look like action, that love requires output, that if we're not doing something, we're failing someone. And this practice gently disrupts that training. It asks you to notice how fixing is reflexive and how quickly your body moves toward control when discomfort shows up. Presence is not something you are, it is something you practice. And like any practice, it feels horribly awkward at first. It goes against your habit. It goes against conditioning and against a culture that rewards speed, certainty, and resolution above all else. Choosing presence can feel like you're doing it wrong because you're not getting the usual feedback loop of usefulness or praise. But presence isn't passive. It's active restraint. It's choosing not to override the moment just to feel competent. It's staying grounded while everything around you demands reaction, especially right now. We are living in a time when the world is loud, reactive, and constantly demanding resolution it has yet to earn. Every outrage comes with a call to respond immediately. Every truth drop is followed by pressure to have the correct take, the perfect phrasing, the right action plan right the fuck now. There is very little room to sit with complexity, grief, or uncertainty before being pushed into performance. And this practice pushes back on that. You are not required to turn every feeling into action. You are not responsible for making other people comfortable with the truth. And you are not failing when you choose to stay instead of solve. Staying doesn't mean endorsing harm. It doesn't mean indifference. It means refusing to rush past reality just to get back to emotional equilibrium. It means letting truth land fully before deciding what comes next. That's Samiksha. Clear seeing, careful observation, steady presence without interference. Samiksha doesn't ask you to withdraw from the world. It asks you to engage more honestly with it, to notice when your impulse to fix is really an impulse to escape discomfort, to recognize when silence is being labeled as inaction because it can't be measured or monetized. And here's the thing that often gets missed. Presence doesn't just change how you show up for others. It changes how you treat yourself. When you stop forcing resolution, you give your own nervous system room to breathe. When you stop performing wellness, you allow yourself to be human. When you stop demanding clarity on a timeline dictated, when you stop demanding clarity on a timeline dictated by fear, you make space for wisdom instead of reactivity. This is especially important for those of you who carry a lot. The caregivers, the organizers, the ones people lean on, the ones who have been praised for being strong so often that rest feels like betrayal. Practicing presence instead of fixing is one way of gently loosening that role. Not abandoning care, but reshaping it into something that can last. Because burnout doesn't come from caring too much. It comes from caring without containment, from being present for everyone but yourself. Presence with boundaries is not cold, it is sustainable. It's the difference between showing up briefly and disappearing and showing up steadily over time. So this week, my witchlings, let yourself notice the moments where you don't leap into action. Let yourself trust that listening is enough. Let yourself believe that staying can be just as meaningful as solving. Something I have been taught, and I'm working on teaching the man behind the curtain and other, particularly men in my life. When typically a woman is venting at you, most men jump in to fix the problems that she's venting, which frustrates us women because we want to fix our shit ourselves. We're adults, we're capable. And a man jumps in while we're venting and tells us how to fix it. And we're just like, I can do it myself. So what I am working on teaching the men in my life is when something like this happens, whether it's someone venting or you see something, ask. Consent is key. Do you want me to help you fix this, or do you want me to listen? If you are ever unsure as to whether you need to act or the person just needs you to be present, ask. Yes, it's embarrassing sometimes. Yes, it's frustrating. Because, your training is to just leap in and fix. Ask first. It goes against every instinct you're going to have. But that is what we want you to do this week. Notice when you have that instinct and you don't act on it. As we close, my loves, I want to remind you of something I repeat every day because it matters. Spread love. Spread joy. Spread kindness. Not the performative kind, not the kind that demands self-erasure, but the kind rooted in honesty, steadiness, and care that doesn't consume you. And if you take one thing away from everything I do here, every episode, every practice, every conversation, I hope it's that you always remember this. You are loved, you are wanted, and you are needed. You have a reason and a purpose for being here, even if you don't know what it is yet, even if it hasn't revealed itself, even if the path feels unclear or unfinished. You are not broken. You are not behind. And you are definitely not required to have it all figured out to matter. Sometimes your purpose is simply to stay, to witness, to be present in a world that keeps trying to rush past its own humanity. And in a culture addicted to fixing, that might just be the most bitchin' magic we've got here. Spread love, spread joy, spread kindness. There is enough darkness and hate out there, my witches. Let's be beacons of light and hope for those stumbling through it. Tell your loved ones in all their forms, 2 legs, 4 legs, wings, fur, scales, paws, claws, whatever, that you love them beyond all measure. Time passes so much faster than we want to admit, and the chances to say I love you are never, ever guaranteed. And please, my witchlings, never, ever forget, you are loved. You truly are wanted, and you are needed, even when you don't feel like it. And there is so definitely a reason that you're here, my witches. I love you guys all to bits. You guys are the reason I do this every day. I love it. I have so much fun doing this with you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here with me. All right. Boop, boop, boop. Yep. Have a good one, Andrea. I love you guys to bits. Jay, you're doing pretty good. Jay, you keep showing up and you are listening to what we share with you here. That is the biggest and most important thing. You don't throw your hands up and go, oh, nobody's listening to me. You guys don't care what I have to think when we call you out and push back. That is the important thing here. You are listening. You are learning. You are open. That's all we ask. That's all we can ask. And we ask it of ourselves. As Andrea says, there's a time to talk and there are times for listening. No, your spelling is perfect there, babe. There's a time to talk and there's a time for listening. And this week, our Sanskrit word is telling us to just kind of listen. Samīkṣā, witness, observe, listen. So that's what we're doing. And on that note, my witchlings, I love you guys to bits. You are the absolute best part of my day. I will see you all tomorrow for daily divination and self-care. Have a fantabulous rest of your day or night, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you. I love you guys to bits. Namaste, my witchlings.